Yes, hello people, how are you all doing? Welcome back to the channel Football Therapy with me, your host Jan. I've been doing well, mate. I really do hope that the real stuff is back. Incessant, relentless international breaks where I have to watch my international team, England, stink the gaff out and literally bore me to death. The only positive I've got is Cole Palmer coming on, making his debut for England, looking pretty good. And coming back home to Chelsea, uninjured, that word? Regardless, really happy the Premier League's back. Loads of good games this weekend, actually. I'm buzzing to watch Everton annihilate Manchester United. I gave my thoughts on that over on the sister channel, Football Yannick. I'm doing a game week I've done a game week preview. Go check that out if you want my thoughts on the general Premier League game week 13, I believe it is. Football Yannick, the sister channel. But we're talking about Chelsea today, and Chelsea are playing away at Newcastle. Of course, Gary Neville thinks we're going to lose, the silly knobber, but I think we might not. I'm going to talk about how we might not today in terms of lineup of players, as well as reflecting on what Chelsea manager Mauricio Pochettino has said in his pre-match press conference. So yeah, buzzing, mate. Thank you for joining me. I'm so happy you're here. If you want to support the content, simply like and subscribe. And if you do choose to subscribe, which you don't have to, of course, but if you choose to do so, hit the bell notifications icon. Thanks for liking the video as well, you sweet thing. All right, so Pochettino did speak in his pre-match presser. Let's get the bad news out the way first. Lavia and Nkunku will not feature in this game. Now, that's okay. You know, we're just all really excited to have them back. Look, we've done all right in the last few games without them, but and let's be real, Lavia is going to be a difficult one to sort of seek the benefit of at the moment in terms of, you know, you can only really see him as cover, you know, depth for injuries and stuff, but Nkunku does represent an upgrade on what we're currently playing. So that's why everyone wants to see Nkunku. And in fact, Pochettino has explained that Christopher Nkunku is further along in terms of his, you know, fitness development to be integrated into the side. It will be exciting to see Lavia. It will be even more exciting to see Nkunku, and he just won't be, and neither will be involved in the matchday squad this weekend against Newcastle. Maybe the following week, you know, especially Nkunku. I think personally, you add another week to that, I reckon Nkunku will be in the matchday squad and he'll be on the bench. But, you know, it's not really bad news. It's just we're all so eager and excited to see the new shiny things into the team. But it's cool. It's cool, man. We'll get there. So we are English, Yen. We are going to talk about the game, and I've made a lineup for you, and I'm going to talk about Newcastle. But first, Pochettino has said in an interview of beIN Sports, as well as this pre-match press conference at Cobham for Chelsea versus Newcastle. Understandably, he's questioned about, look, you play well against the good teams, but why do you struggle against the defensive teams and defensive block? And he's actually clearly prepared an answer because he's regurgitated the same response in now multiple media interviews. And he's used the example, of course, Chelsea lost to Brentford 2-0, which was a frustrating result. I don't know. I was going to say, they were for 2-0, but yeah, why not? If you score the goals, you deserve it, you know? And it was very frustrating for Chelsea, and it was a conventional case of low block and counter. And that is Chelsea's Achilles heel. That's what we've been talking about here on the channel. Heck, that's what everybody in the world of football has been talking about in terms of Chelsea's, you know, softness. So he's used Brentford as an example, Pochettino that is, and he spoke about Liverpool versus Brentford and Chelsea versus Brentford, and he doesn't feel like Liverpool was better than Chelsea, but comparatively, what he says is what we lack and what they have. And I found this interesting because he could just say, look, oh yeah, some tactics we want to tweak. Yeah, we're developing. You know, we need to learn a little bit more our ideas before we can break these down. And that's kind of what I expected. Relatively loose and generic, but just like yeah, you know, it's when you break down a low block, you need to really know your style of play, like the Guardiola Rubik's Cube of attacks that eventually you just break down, you know, low blocks. I think on a slight fleeting tangent, there is like a Guardiola 15 pass move that's meant to reset all phases of play, which makes football sound terribly robotic, autonomic, and boring, but it friggin' works. They won the treble. So, you know, I thought Pochettino was going to lean into that, you know, we're still a young team, we're still a developing team, which he does reference sometimes, and, you know, attacking movements and our ideas in the final third against low blocks need to come with time. But he didn't say that. He just says, no, I don't think, for example, these other teams that are breaking low blocks in the same instances, I don't think they're better than us. He said it's just maturity. And I found that really interesting because it makes me think, so what does he mean by that? And is that going to be helpful to the players? And is he trying to like get something out of the players? Or, you know, I don't think, and I've reflected on this, and what I think it is he's not saying that publicly to try and provoke the players to like grow up and score a fucking goal. What I think is he knows that his players are capable of breaking down these low blocks. He's seen the actions from the players. He's seen the combinational play that would have penetrated said low blocks. He's seen the finishes, the more perhaps difficult, ambitious finishes that you need to take on against these low blocks. He's seen it all. This is what I'm speculating here. But he feels like in the moment, the frustration and the emotion gets to the Chelsea players and they don't remain calm. I think he also spoke about remaining calm, and therefore lack the maturity to simply execute what they're capable of doing to score the goals. So he thinks generally in terms of application, you know, work rate, and often everything else apart from that final action that requires maturity. Maybe that maturity sort of translates a little bit to invention, but I think when he says maturity, it's not developmental. He knows the players are talented. He knows he's seen what they can do in combinational terms in the final third to score goals. And he believes that's not the problem. The problem is the players just to mature. Like obviously, he used, again, Liverpool as an example. More senior forward players in terms of the attackers are more senior. They're more settled into the Premier League. You know, Diaz and Nunez are new, but Mohamed Salah and Jota's been in the Prem for donkeys now. Do you know what I mean? And like all these players, they're just settled. They're a little bit older. They know what to do. And when it comes to, you know, beating these low blocks, and it's not just Liverpool, there's other teams as well. But I found it really interesting that he used that kind of thing, and that kind of example, excuse me. And I get it, and I kind of agree. And like I've just explained to you, my sort of how I decipher that is, you know, you can do it. We've seen you do it, but you're pranging out, you're freaking out in the games, and you're not taking a breath and being patient, and therefore you're just recycling the ball, and no one's doing the stuff that we know you can do, which I believe isn't systemic, and it's certainly not a talent thing. I guess, yeah, maturity, yeah. So, will we be mature enough to deliver some goals? Deliver some goals to Tyneside. Of course, Newcastle, a very, very good team, but they're in some stinky form. They lost away at Bournemouth, 2 goals to former Chelsea man Dominic Solanke. But of course, that was before the international break. That it came out for a good time for them, for a bad time for us. Pochettino reiterated the fact how, yes, it was a bad time for Chelsea, the international break. As it always seems, you know, we get into good form and then like we have to go off to international break. Fortunately, it's the last one now till March, I believe, so we can forget about that now. I do believe, of course, they had absentees, Newcastle, but I think they'll have some returning players. But the team they put out against Bournemouth, they had a front three of Anthony Gordon, Almiron, and Joel Linton. They had Willock, Miley in midfield. I don't know if Bruno Guimaraes is still out or back. Sean Longstaff. They had Lascelles in for Botman. I think Botman might be back, which would be massive. They still got Kieran Trippier. They did play Lewis Hall, but Lewis Hall won't be able to play in this game, of course, because he's still technically on loan for 1 season. And that actually will help us because you'd put the farm on Lewis Hall doing something against Chelsea, wouldn't you? So thank goodness we don't have to worry about that. And of course, Nick Pope in goal. We might see Tino Livramento play, though, in terms of a former Chelsea player. But I think at least one of their strikers will be back. I don't know if it's going to be Wilson or Isak. I think there's a chance Isak will have returned, and he's obviously an excellent centre forward. And you could have a front three of Isak flanked by Almiron, and Anthony Gordon can play on the left where he plays a little bit better. And then Joel Linton can move back into midfield with Sean Longstaff and Willock, and suddenly they've just got a really strong team again. They play a 4-3-3, of course, and they're very, very robust. People are calling them Atletico Tyneside, and it works. You soak it up and then you slap them up. Which, you know, if they're going to play low block and counter, I don't know if they'll be low block and counter, a bit more mid block and counter. They do love winning the ball back, which will leave them vulnerable at times. Bearing in mind as well, they'll be at home. And because they'll be at home, the onus will be on them to play out a little bit more. They can't just stink out the gaff. Although, to be honest, the Newcastle fans at the moment, they've dealt with such stinky football for so long that because they're in the Champions League, because they've had some big wins and finished 4th last season, that they're kind of just happy to do whatever because, you know, Eddie Howe's got them cooking generally. Of course, that 4-1 win against PSG, that's a memory that the Newcastle fans will maintain. I've built a lineup. Let's take a look, shall we? Now, we know, of course, Nkunku and Lavia are out, but we weren't probably going to start either of them. Sanchez will remain in goal. We will never see Georgia Petrovic ever unless Sanchez is injured, God forbid. Now, Pochettino will want to keep his preferred centre-back partnership for the moment. That will, of course, not be able to last forever, simply because Thiago Silva is 39 years old. But he's rested. I don't believe he went on international break. I think he just took some time out. He'll be prepared for this game, which means Silva and Disasi will be a centre-back partnership. Now, Captain Reece James, who Pochettino loves and has been speaking about a lot in interviews, will start. Will he play the 90? I'm not sure it matters because we've got Malo Gusto, but Pochettino says he might be able to play the 90. Of course, eventually, we will have to aim for Reece James playing the 90. You might be thinking, why, Jan? Why risk it when you can play Malo Gusto? Well, because you need to be able to get your fitness up to that rate, and if he can sustain 90 minutes without being gassed, then you've got Reece James on the pitch 70 to 90 minutes, offering what he can offer. Like, it's a good player being on the pitch for longer. Now, Levi Cole has been confirmed to be in the squad for this game, so he could easily play left back. I'm going for Marc Cucurella because Cucurella seems to be playing better. Obviously, he speaks in Spanish in terms of the tactics with Pochettino. I feel like it's his place to lose at the moment. There is, of course, a chance tactically that Levi Cole will have plays in this game at left back, and then obviously if we do that, which is very, very plausible, then we can see a de facto back three happen with James creating overloads on the right hand side. And when you've got a player as good as Reece James, who's apparently in scintillating form, that could happen. So you could have Cole pressing here, Silva covering, Disasi sort of pressing there, and of course, who's going to break up this midfield at the moment? Spoiler, no one. Fernandez and Caicedo should be good to go. Conor Gallagher really is the man at the moment in that midfield. No one in the top 5 leagues has as many high turnovers as him, which is winning the ball back in the final third. He runs, just constantly gets the ball back. Really, really useful. And because there's no space to run into for the moment, certainly I don't think against Newcastle, I believe we'll see Sterling instead of Mykhailo Mudryk. Mudryk will almost certainly come off the bench. And in terms of the striker, Nico Jackson's 4 goals in 2 games. They're happy with him in training. And the one guy who you know ain't going nowhere is Cole Palmer on the right-hand side. So he will play there, drift inside, and etc, etc. Let's just move a little bit back to a back 4 here, and obviously you can, in defensive formations or out of possession, this is what you'll see. You will see a 4-4-2 with Gallagher and Jackson pressing from the front. And that is how we will play. Although sometimes Palmer joins the front press, but I think because Jackson will start, you'll see that 4-4-2 out of possession, which is very, very robust indeed, ladies and gentlemen. But in terms of substitutions I want to talk about, the most likely substitutions, of course, I think probably to start with is, where is he? Where is he? Well, there he is, Mudryk. Mudryk, there, especially if we go a goal ahead, Newcastle will come out to try and chase the game, which will, of course, afford Misha Mudryk the space to run into him behind and cause some damage. I also think I think he's good to go and play a little bit. I think we'll see a little bit of Bria. He's videoed in training, scoring some excellent goals. So especially if Nico's not done much for 60 minutes, and we haven't actually scored a goal, you might see Bria get a whole half hour. If we are ahead, you probably see Bria get 5 to 10 minutes. But that's the 2 that I can see being substituted in the front 3. I see Palmer playing the full 11? the full 90, excuse me. And of course, if Reece, I don't know, there might not be a point of risking Reece James. You see Gusto almost certainly play at right back, being another substitute there. And that's how I see the game turning out there. Look, it's going to be a really tough game. If Chelsea win away at Newcastle, not only will Gary Neville look like a silly little sausage after making himself look like one anyway, it will be just an immense amount of evidence that Chelsea really are trending in the right direction. If we don't, it will be like, oh yeah, you know, Chelsea always like slip up, and maybe, you know, Newcastle play defensive and they're like, oh, they just can't break down the defence again, can they? Can they, Chelsea? And they'll be like, oh, and the narrative will become our Chelsea are flip-flops. When really, probably the truth is that we were doing really, really well, and the international break came at a really poor time for us. But we can't keep making that excuse. They are just facts of football. There are international breaks. Granted, there were loads in quick succession, but it's just how it is. So there'll be no excuses. I think Chelsea will win. I think we win. I think there's a good feeling. I think there's quality. I think Cole Palmer will just feel like he's still king of the world. You know, Pochettino has done his... I know it's really early, but he's done the thing he does where he makes a young player feel like $1,000 and just that they can tear the Premier League apart. He did it with like Dele Alli and gang, you know, that he just made him say like, you're the king of the world, mate. And Dele Alli went on to score like 16 or 17 Premier League goals in a season. Like, I think they were probably all non-penalty goals as well, which is pretty sensational. I think he'll be like saying to Palmer, like, you know, similar stuff in terms of going to get him to express himself. And we're going to need that creativity at time from Cole Palmer. But I think with the midfield that we've got, Caicedo, Gallagher and Fernandes, the belief is increased. Of course, Argentina beat Brazil in that controversial game. Fernandes' confidence will be up. You know, Thiago Silva's rested. Reece James apparently looking really, really good. I think we are just in good shape, and provided we can sort of break the curse of the international break form, I think we win. I don't think it's going to be easy. Newcastle probably having players back. They're at home. I think they will score, despite us having a pretty good defence, even though we conceded 4 last game out. But that was a pretty wild game against City. One was a soft pen and one was a deflected goal off Thiago Silva's foot. I think defensively we are quite good. Despite that though, because it's after an international break and I think it's just a tough fixture, I think they score. But I think we score more. So I think it's going to be a 2-1 win to Chelsea. I would like to see yet another Nico Jackson goal to sort of silence the haters. And maybe we get a Cole... I said I'd like a Cole Palmer goal. I'd love an open play Cole Palmer goal. But at the same time, I think it would just be kind of fun if he just scored. We get a penalty and he just scores another penalty. And he just gets loads of penalty goals. You know, people always kind of like throw that. I know people did it at Bruno Fernandes as well when he just scored all those penalties and, you know, had that really great season. But you get a penalty, you score a penalty, you get a goal. That's how it works. Let me know what you think. Comment down below. I'll be very interested in reading your comments, as I always am. Thank you for joining me. Thank you to all the new people who's joined the community by subscribing. And thank you for liking the video. Keep it locked, of course. There'll probably be a video tomorrow, and then there'll be a complete breakdown of this game on the Sunday. Alright, gang. I'll see you very soon. Take care of yourselves. Peace.